Hello and welcome to another episode of MMA DFS for Beginners. This is your host, Jesse, aka He Hate Me. That is my handle on DraftKings. So if you guys want the smoke, you know where to find me. No, not really. But yeah, if you guys want to challenge me, I'm up for it for cash games. Okay, so leaving off from last episode, the first episode, this is episode 2. Update on the 500 challenge. Again, starting off with $100. The goal is 500, and that's all gonna go to one lucky subscriber. All you have to do is just be a subscriber. No retweeting or any of that stuff. And I promise not to add that in the future. However long it takes to get to this 500, we will do it. All right, so not the best start, right? Lost $5, 5%. That's not too bad. Last week was a cash, a slate. I played mostly cash. Played one GPP. I think I played the single entry, which I did not do well. But the cash games, I did relatively well considering two things. So, number one is, and these are learning lessons, right? It's really important to go back and reflect on your losses to see where you went wrong and what you can learn from them. Because, right, we don't want to repeat these same mistakes. So, number one thing was, as you all know, or as you don't know, I was heavily exposed to Atman, a Zaitar. He was great value. That's why I was overexposed to him. And I don't regret that. I think that was still the correct decision. Don't let the outcomes of the fight. See, we're not here to predict the fights. We're just here to put ourselves in position to win money. The outcomes of the fight are totally out of our hands, especially MMA, where anything can happen. So a Zaitar lost. As you can see, scored 4.2 points, and I was heavily exposed to him. And the reason why I was heavily exposed to him, because he was a favorite, priced as an underdog fighter. His pricing was an underdog fighter, and he was an actual favorite. He had a lot of upside, too, a lot of first round inside the distance equity. So I would have still win with that. It was still a little too... It was a volatile fight. That's what sucks. You don't want volatility in cash games, but the value was just too great to pass up. I do like hedging with triple ups. I'll add the person I'm overexposed to, his opponent. I'll add as an opponent to a triple up and stack. Basically a cash game, with the exception of having the opponent and filling in some holes where fighters that I wasn't exposed to. The only mistake I did two mistakes after this. I did everything right. I still exposed myself to Atman and Frivola. I did this correctly, hedge. But I was super exposed to Dominic Reyes too. Those were probably the two most. That's what I'm saying. I relatively did well. Although I did lose, I didn't lose not even half my chip in what I risked. I only lost $5. I put in 20, so I don't know how much loss that is. But anyways, 5%, right? So half $10 would be 50%. Oh, like 25% loss on my what I put in. Anyways, going back to getting carried away, getting off topic. So Dominic Reyes, since I was so exposed to him, it led me to some volatility, because in case he did lose, I'm screwed, which I do not want happening. I want to minimize that in cash games. I should not have added him to my hedge lineup. I should have did a completely other lineup to hedge him with Span. I should have had two of these, and these two probably would have hit. If I would have done another lineup like this, but with Span, I would have probably hit on these two triple ups, and I would have probably been even up a little bit, slightly, just to hedge those two overexposed fights. But I didn't do that, but that is a learning lesson. Next time I have overexposed fighters, I'm only going to put one in a hedge lineup, And also, if it's a volatile fight, especially like Dominic Reyes, looking back on it, I shouldn't have been overexposed to him. Ahmed, yeah, because it was great value, but Reyes, that fight was pretty volatile. Looking at the inside the distance, looking back on it, I'm not gonna get so overexposed to those sort of fights. If there's no value, if there's value, I'm all over it. But if there's no value, the volatile fights is. Make sure to stay away. Or if I do want to be overexposed to it, make sure that I hedge it very well. So that was last week. Learning lesson. Put that in my mind. And moving on. Right, moving on. That was one slate. Don't let that get still fight. But I mean, if you times it by like 10 of 50, 500. I mean, that's when it starts hurting. But you gotta make sure, hey, okay, it was just one slate and there's many slates. Like, look at it as a whole and not just individual slates, because it's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So looking at next week's fight, or this week's fight, the Lewis and Spivak, this is a good fight for GPPs. I'm going to go GPP on this card. I say that because most underdogs are live, super live, with the exception of Danny Roberts, right? But Derek Lewis, all the way to Demopolis, you got 38%, 36%, 39, 42, 40, 42, 42, 42, 42, 52, 51. So those are pretty good odds for underdogs. So we're going to get a lot of underdogs winning. So that's going to cause for a lot of variance, a lot of volatility. We can't rely on the favorites coming through, so I'm not going to go cash. Not going to go cash here. I'm going to go GPP here. And what pops up right away, just looking at the numbers, is the inside the distance. The top three fighters, their inside the distance is -325, -800, -260. So that's Waldo Cortez, Spivak, and Madalena. So those are heavy inside the distance odds. And then aside from that, we also have Nichuku at -260, that fight inside the distance. And the Salikov and Fialho fight at -170 inside the distance. So those three fights, it would be a good idea to be exposed to them pretty heavily. Unfortunately, they're going to also, I mean, it's not a secret, right? Everybody has access to this information. So those fights are going to be pretty heavily owned. Jack Madalena, that predicted to be 51%, Spivak at 39%, Cortez at 26%, Nuchuku at 32%. Not much value with regards to ownership. Maybe it's Salikov at 15%, maybe. But where you will find a leverage meaning low ownership, and they get you, so say you get Vince Morales and he scores very well and his ownership's only 10%, it's going to put you at the top 10%. You're going to be able to leapfrog 90%. That's what I mean by leverage. That's why you want to get low ownership. You don't want to get too much low ownership because you want to balance between ownership and projected points. Usually people who are low owned are also low projected. So you want them to outpoint their projected score, which would be pretty easy. These projections shouldn't be paid too much attention to. They're more of like a rating, like where they stand relatively to each other. That's not the actual projected like points. But if Vince Morales scores like a 90 piece at 10%, you're going to be in pretty good shape, pretty good leverage point here. So good leverage points are Morales, Garcia, and Natividad, basically 10 to 13% amongst those three guys. Some good leverage points there. I have a GPP score, so I adjust their basically a score I give these fighters for my GPP lineups. It's a function of projected points, their percentage of being at a top 100, and their ownership. It's a function of those three. I do adjust slightly the top 100 because some of them I don't agree on. So if I don't agree on it, I'll adjust it slightly. I don't want to adjust it too much because those are the numbers that were given to me. So I'll adjust it to like a maximum of 5%. So those are the fights I'm looking at, the fighters that I am looking at. Let me open up the cruncher. Another main thing, super huge, big thing is late swap, and that's huge. Maybe not at first because people are gonna try to figure this out, but it is introducing a whole nother element where there's more choices to be made, and the more choices you can make, the more edge you can get if you make the correct educated choices. That's a good thing, right? If you're educating yourself on how to play this game and really doing your part on putting yourself in a situation where you make the right choices. The negative is those people who don't want to make those choices, the casuals, those people who just want to have fun, they just want to put money in there and just enjoy the fights is like their form of betting. It's gonna sweep them away a bit. It's gonna be since they don't want to keep up with all this. First of all, they don't have the resources to keep up with this. They don't know what to do, and number two, they just don't want to do it. I think a lot of people aren't gonna want to do it, especially fight by fight. If you're checking after every fight, it can be a burden, a pretty big burden. And it's a Saturday. You know, most people want to enjoy their Saturdays, not sit in front of a computer and waste their brain glycogen, right? Because it does take energy when you're freaking looking at all these numbers and trying to figure things out. It's like a puzzle. It is fun, but it does take mental energy. It will drain you. So, what? I am a member already. Oh, did I log into what? Maybe I don't even know what I wanted to show you guys from the crunch. I just wanted to crunch some lineups real quick to show an example of. Okay, so I should have had this all set it up already. So quick views. I have my. Actually, no. Let's go complete view. This is when I export things. Did it make me go to quick view? No. All columns. Okay. I do upload my own scores. So this bad boy right here, GPP. It's very simple. Most, if not all, premium. Why don't you work? Oh, I was pressing. Come on. What the hell is that? How do you undo? Clear all rows. All right. Amateur hour. So GPPs. Copy that. Excuse me. Paste. And now we need the names. So most, if not all, premium subscriptions, when you're using their optimizer, they allow you to upload your own projections, which I'm doing here. Very simple. Boom, easy peasy. I'm not going to say lemon squeezy after that. I will say that, but not after that. I will hate myself too much for saying that. All right, so these are my projections, and I'm just going to, super simple, let's go with 10 lineups. I think I'm going to start building lower lineups. Before that, I'm going to crunch it real quick, but before talking about that, I want to talk about the late swap again, real quick. Right quick. My plan, I'm going to say my plan and the reason why I'm going about it this way. First of all, I do not want to look at every fight. After every fight, I do not want to just, number one, I don't think I have it down to the point where I'll be making the right decisions after every freaking fight. Sometimes you can actually, overcorrect your lineups. And number two, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to be in front of a damn computer doing it the whole time. And I work tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to do it. I can do it, but I guess I should do it, right? Get paid for doing it. But it is not a moral thing to do, and I am a moral man, supposedly. So one thing I do want to mention is their lock times, it says right here, are static. So these locks, the times under every fighter, it's going to lock that fight at that time, and it's every 20 minutes. And that's not going to reflect, the timing is not going to reflect reality. Like, for example, this Tercio's fight, locking at 11, this fight might lock, and the Garcia fight might be going on. You know what I mean? So we don't have the results of this yet, and then this one already locked. You know what I mean? So it's not gonna be super sequential like that, where it's like, all right, the fight's about to start, and then it locks. No, it's gonna lock like 2, 3 fights beforehand, and that's gonna get worse as the card goes on, because this is not the timing that it's gonna happen, right? You got commercials, you got fights, some fights that are quick, some fights that are long. So that's another thing. It's just gonna be a headache trying to get the timing right. So what I plan to do is I'm gonna crunch my numbers, right? I'm gonna crunch them like this. This is just an example. I'm gonna get a lineup, and I'm gonna look at my exposure. So I did 10 lineups real quick using my projections, and I have 100% Jack Magdalena. All right, 100%. I like that. Spivak 60%. I like that. Waldo, I like that. It's 30. I don't want too much. 20. Let's see at the bottom, 70. Sherman. I might want to lower that. I'll adjust this later. I don't want to adjust this because it could take a while to start adjusting to the numbers I like. But I don't want 70% Sherman or Kutalaba 80. I want to drop those a little bit. Maybe Derek Lewis at 40% is good. 60. So this looks good, decent. I would adjust a little bit. So for the sake of an example, now the start times, the fight number matters. So I'm a sort by fights, and this is the first fight of the card, right? The Silva and Bleda. So I'm gonna look at where do I get heavy exposure to? What fight will that be? And it looks like I'm not gonna get heavy exposure till I get to the Natividad fight, right? I get 50%. Demopoulos, Fernie Garcia, I got 30%, but that's the second fight. Maybe I'll check in after that, but I'm definitely gonna check in after this Natividad fight because I have 50% of his. So he's fight number 1, 2, 3, 4. So after fight number 4, I'm gonna check it out, and then I'm gonna adjust my lineups after this fight. It's probably gonna skip this one. This one's gonna probably be locked already as this is fighting. So I might not be able to adjust this fight. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be able to adjust this fight, but I may be able to adjust Maya, fight 7 all the way down to fight 1. That's the way I'm gonna do it. Maybe just that one, because then I don't get another Magdalena, and maybe after the Magdalena fight, probably because I'll be working. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to catch the main event. This sucks too because usually I'll just watch the replays. I'll sweat the replays, but now I'm not gonna be able to sweat the replays. I'm gonna have to actually watch it live. We're live, and it's gonna be tricky because I'm working. So yeah, that's my plan of attack. Just check lineups after Natividad, and adjust if he wins or loses. So now going to the game plan. So if Natividad wins, I'm not gonna adjust any of his lineups. I'm gonna keep it as that because I'm still shooting for number 1 spot. The only way I'm gonna adjust, and this is me personally, just for time's sake and how busy I'm gonna be, if he loses, all the lineups, which are gonna be 50% of my lineups, the 5 lineups, if it's 10 lineups, the 5 lineups that he's in, I'm just gonna treat it. I'm gonna adjust it to where make it as much of a cash lineup as possible, because at that point, if you have one loser, it's gonna be a very difficult a situation for you to score a first place. That's what you're shooting for. You're either shooting for score place. You're usually shooting for first place or min cashing. So if you get that loser, not Tavidad, if he loses, that it is gonna be a leverage point too, right? Because his ownership is like at 12% or something like that. 12.2%. It's a leverage point. If that leverage point fails, you're just trying to min cash those lineups, that 50%. Just adjust it to where you're looking just for win equity. So if you have another leverage point with the Natividad, you're just gonna switch to a more chalky lineup. So for example, say you got Natavidad, right, and he loses, so you're like shit. What to do? If you don't have enough salary on the table, because if you have like 400 salary on the table, you can do something like, say you have Natavidad and you have Andre Fialho, right? Who is, this is kind of a bad example because a lot of these fighters have good win equity. So say you have Vince Morales, who's an underdog at 42%. If you have Natavidad, say you're going super leverage, you're getting two fighters that are less than 15%. There's no point of having Morales. If Natavidad loses, there's no point of having Morales. Ownership isn't going to be isn't going to matter right now. You're looking for more for win equity. You're looking for this. You're looking for 5 winners. You're trying to get 5 winners. So Natavidad loses, Vince Morales, you'll probably go up to like, say, Oliveira, right? Maria Oliveira. You go from 42% win equity to 53%. So you jump basically 10% in the win equity. You have a 10% better chance of winning a fighter that wins, right? And there's going to be different ways of going about it. If you have the extra salary just to go straight up, then great. How much is that? That would be, what, 700, 800, 8,200. If you have $400 laying around, just boom, plug and play, and you're good. Or you're gonna have to probably sacrifice. You're probably gonna have to pay down a little bit. Like these high fighters. Say you got like Acosta, which is a really, or even like Spivak. That's a pretty volatile fight, right? What's his name? What's his inside the distance? 175. That's pretty good for inside the distance. So you might want to swap out Spivak just to free up some salary. And then instead of having like Spivak and Morales, you can have something like Tercios and Johnson, right? Two more reliable winners than a fighter who could score high, and then underdog who you're hoping is going to win. So you just don't want 2 losers. You want another loser who which underdogs usually technically are supposed to be losing more often than Tercios and Johnson. That's gonna be the pivot. That's gonna be the play. If my fighter loses, my first leverage point loses, let's go cash game. Let's min cash. Let's try to get to that minimum cash where it's like 1.5x usually of your money. You're basically just trying to salvage your lineups. And that's how I'm going to play the swapping for now until we learn a little bit more of strategies and whatnot of how to play with it. But for now, and it's usually that's the case. I don't play NBA DFS, but I've seen late swap strategy for late NBA DFS. And that, people would do that like they're not in position to win first place or to score very high. So they're just trying to get that min cash and get floor, get their floor higher. Instead of having a high ceiling, they're gonna want a good floor. Ceiling has the potential to score high points, and the floor is like an average of what they score. So that's gonna be similar to here. That's how I'm gonna play it, and that's what I recommend to you all. If you don't want to keep track of every fight, just be careful of not over adjusting, because you don't want to over adjust. There's a reason why you drafted a certain team. And of course, if it didn't go as planned, then adjust, but don't over adjust, right? So that's where I'm gonna leave it at this episode. I think I covered everything I want to talk about, and I believe I did. Right when I turned this off, I'm like, shit, I wanted to talk about that. But next week we'll see the results of this late swap thing. I'll talk about how I did it. Maybe moving forward, I'll be talking more of like the late swap strategy, because it does add an extra element of strategy, and I feel like I fit like the middle, because I'm not going to be following every fight, but I do think there's a way of utilizing. That's the thing I want to talk about. I knew there's one thing I want to talk about. If you don't want to, the smaller the field in the tournament you're playing, the more this late swap is going to affect you. The larger the field, the less it's going to affect you, because the larger the field, there's a lot more lineups, and you can't really predict of what other people have. So any changes you make in your lineup is going to be less impactful in larger fields as opposed to medium or smaller fields. So if you don't want to swap too much and you want to swap maybe once or twice a card, which I'm looking at to do, stick to the big, large GPPs. That's what I recommend. And don't put so much volume. I used to do like 40 to 50 lineups. Now I'm just going to probably do 10 just so I can manage it easier. So that's just the last tip. I'll see you guys next week. Next week, actually, no, I think we're off. It's not till the week after that, I believe, which is going to be the Thompson and Holland fight, which is going to be pretty sick too. So I will not make another episode. If we're off next week, I probably will just make an episode just to go over this and talk more in depth of the late swap strategy. I'm learning more about it, and I want to put this theory into practice and see what happens. So I'll catch you guys next week.